So I feel like we're gaining momentum. We're opening people's eyes that there are actually things more valuable than money. What else? What else is on the list?
I think we flew out into the highest realms. Let's come back a little bit. Let's speak about some other more mundane things that I think will really resonate with people on a rational level. It's important to make sure we have good friends. Maimonides writes, Rambam says, most of a person's perspectives and attitudes are just what we see other people do. You know, how many young people, they're on the right path, and all of a sudden, you know, they take a left turn and nobody knows why. You know, like, where did this come from? Nobody saw this coming. Like, what happened to this kid? And more often than not, they just hooked up with the wrong friend, and it could be very dangerous. So, you know, the words that the sages use are Kenei Lecha Chaver, buy a friend. Buy a friend doesn't just mean money, because like we're learning, there are things more valuable than money. So actually, sometimes a better way to buy a friend is with things that are more valuable than money. Look, you know what everybody agrees is more valuable than money? Everybody loves honor, right? Because people exchange money. People donate millions of dollars. Why? Is it always altruistic? No. They're giving millions of dollars because they want recognition, because in their conscious or subconscious, they realize recognition and honor is more valuable than money. Now, sometimes it's hard to be mechabed somebody, to give somebody the compliment or the honor that they're yearning for. But if you want to have a good friend, who's a good friend? How do you know if someone is a good friend for you? Very simple. When I'm associated with this guy, do I spend more time learning Torah? Do I come earlier to the davening, earlier to the prayer? Do I give more charity? In other words, just ask yourself, associating with that guy, is it elevating my service of God? Or is it, am I more involved in the physical world? So that's the type of barometer a person should use. A good friend is more valuable than money.
It's also interesting because sometimes you could be with somebody and walk away feeling elevated. You're in a better mood. You're feeling positive. And then sometimes you can have a conversation with someone and you just feel down afterwards, right? And then you realize, hey, maybe the subject matter, the conversations that I was having with so-and-so, he may not be in the best place. I'm going to help him, but maybe I should distance myself because, like you said, especially teenagers, there's a negative influence there that can shape someone's life without even them realizing, right? No one's really actively thinking, should I be hanging out with this person? Is he having a positive or a negative effect on my life?
And I think one of the parents' most important responsibilities is some parents are afraid to do this. You see your kid hang out with somebody. Don't be afraid to say, are you sure this is the right friend for you? Well, so-and-so, such a nice kid. Now, you don't have to say, never speak to that kid again. Kid will pick up the message. Sometimes parents are afraid to meddle in kids' relationships. That's your job. That's your responsibility. Your job is to be super sensitive to who your children are associating with and to direct them to the correct relationships.
I was once at a conference and there was a multi-millionaire, many businesses, probably in his 40s at the time. And he was asked, what is your biggest fear in life? And, I started to think, okay, losing all my money, business goes south, dying. And he says, my biggest fear in life is dying alone. Loneliness. He would give up all the money in the world to be surrounded by people that love him, that have a positive effect on him, that he can give to others. His biggest fear out of everything on the list was loneliness. So when you mention good friends, I've seen it, this idea that people think once I come into money, then I'm going to have everything set. And, what are you going to have? Just a big bank account that you're looking at? Even on a materialistic level, if you don't have anyone to spend it with, where are you going?
It's an empty existence.
Yeah. So it really resonates.
Yeah, the sages have an expression. There's a maxim. Oy chavrusa, oy misusa. Either a good friend or death. Where they recognize life is only valuable if you have someone who you could enjoy it and have a positive relationship with. There's something a lot more valuable than money. There's an expression in the world, time is money. What does time is money mean? Time is so valuable. You know what you could do with time? You could make money with time. Or if you lose time, it's like losing money because I could have made money in that time. That's the expression. Time is money. And Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was the father of the Musar movement. The Musar movement we once discussed is the movement to emphasize the ethical teachings of the Torah. So Salanter said, no, not time is money. That's just the opposite. That's exactly why we're having this conversation. No, not time is money. Money. You know why money is valuable? You know how valuable money is? It's so valuable. You know what you could do with it? You could buy time. Time is much more valuable. So in the world, time. You know how valuable time is? It's so valuable. Because why? You can make money. No, we say just the opposite. Money is valuable because you could use it to buy the most important commodity, time. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, one of the leading rabbis, the last generation of the Sephardic world, he would say, if something broke in the house, he said, I can fix it. I'll take out my toolbox, take out the hammer, pull out the thing. But it takes me, I'll call someone to fix it. It will cost me money, but I'm saving 15 minutes. So I'm using money to buy time. What's more valuable, time or money? The most valuable commodity we have is life. It's Asar Simei Tshuva. We're asking God, give us life. What's life? We're not asking for more than 1 year at a time. Life is conglomerate of segments of time. I remember the bank used to give out checkbooks. There was a slogan on the top of the checkbook.
We're gonna have to show on the screen what a checkbook is for.
They don't have them anymore?
No, I'm sure they do, but
then nobody uses checks, right?
For the people in their 20s, they've only heard about it. Yeah. But yes, I know what a check is.
You use checks to buy records, right? So the checkbook, it said on it, life, the ultimate blank check. Think about it. Life is a blank check. It's the most valuable commodity, and it's as valuable as you write it out to be. So really, time is the greatest value. I think Eli showed me from Chidushei Harim, one of the masters of Chasidus. There's a famous comment of the Medrash that says that when Rabbi Akiva was giving his Torah class, his students began to fall asleep. I always say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. His students were falling asleep, and he wanted to wake them up. So he said, why did Esther, Queen Esther, she ruled over 127 provinces. Why did she have that privilege? In the merit of her righteous ancestor, Sarah, who lived 127 righteous years. So Chidushei Harim says, wow, that's so interesting. Wow, I'm sure everybody woke up when they heard that, that alone could put you out. What exactly is so interesting about the fact that Esther ruled over 127 provinces because her great-great-grandmother, Sarah, lived 127 righteous years? She said like this. If Esther ruled over 127 countries because Sarah lived 127 righteous years, that means for every righteous month of Sarah, Esther probably ruled over another state. And for every righteous day of Sarah's life, Esther ruled over an entire city. And for every hour of Sarah's life, Esther ruled over a borough. And for every minute of Sarah's life, she ruled over a city. And for every second of Sarah's life, she ruled over a whole neighborhood. Wow. Look what you could do in a second. A second that you could amass an entire neighborhood. He was telling his students, you're dozing off. You're losing seconds here. You know how valuable a second of life is? So that they woke up. They realized, seconds are the building blocks of life. If I could just illustrate, and putting together the value of Torah and time. By the way, dollars, there's a measuring stick, like their cents and their dollars and their $100 and their $1,000 and their $1,000,000. How do you evaluate Torah? Like what's the breakdown? What does it mean, Torah? Is learning for 1 minute the same as learning for an hour? Like, what does it mean to learn Torah? Do you have to learn for 12 hours straight? Do you have to learn for 10 minutes? Do you have to learn a chapter? Do you have to learn, like, so the Vilna Gaon was from the period of Achronim, the later sages. He lived in the 18th century. He teaches each word of Torah is an independent good deed, which means the Chafetz Chaim made a calculation. In 1 minute, you could learn 200 words. And the reason why Torah is the greatest mitzvah, he said, let's say I help an old lady cross the street, yeah? So it took me 30 minutes until I pressed the button and the light changed and I helped her cross the street. It took a half hour. I did 1 mitzvah. It was a big mitzvah. It took 30 minutes out of my time, but it was 1 mitzvah. If I learn Torah, each word is a separate mitzvah. In 1 minute, 200 words. In 30 minutes, do the math. 200, 6,000. So again, someone who, so to speak, gives up comfort to study, is that religious or is it smart? You know, that's what it comes down to. Is it religious or is it smart? So just to illustrate, you know, to put a little bit of a value, you know, because, you know, I did a lot of traveling lately. I was in Brazil. I was in Australia, and it gets confusing, you know. Something is $5. Is it Aussie dollars? Is it American dollars? You know, soon I'm going to be in South Africa. There, the rand is, you know, $1 is I don't know how many rand. So how valuable is Torah? Rav Simcha Zisel of Kelm taught it was worth it for God to create the whole world for 6,000 years for one Jew to say in the synagogue after a blessing, Baruch Hu uBaruch Shemai, blessed is he and blessed is his name, which is like the smallest possible prayer that you could respond. In terms of value, it's like the least value. It's like a penny, you know? If we have pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters in the spiritual world, the penny would be, or the nickel would be, Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai. Now, I don't want to underestimate the Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai. It has inestimable value, but it's like the lowest building block. Okay? But it would be worth it for God, for one person to give that response, Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai, to create the world for 6,000 years. But to answer Amen, to a blessing, Amen, Amen is the equivalency of 1,000 Baruch Hu Baruch Shemais. And Amen Yehesh Me Rabbah, that's like, you know, Amen on steroids. That's like the real powerful praise of God. The Talmud teaches if you say that with all your strength, you could rip up bad decrees. You could accomplish great things.
May his great name be blessed forever and ever.
Yeah. Amen, meaning you acknowledge the blessing is true. His great name, thank you, should be blessed for eternity, yeah. 1,000 amens, Amen Yehesh Me Rabbah equals 1,000 amens. So that's like, Amen Yehesh Me Rabbah is like 1,000,000, do the math. There's like 1,000,000 Baruch Hu Baruch Shemais. And one word of Torah equals 1,000 Amen Yehesh Me Rabbahs.
Think about how many decrees one can rip up with just one Amen.
Right. One Amen. One word of Torah is like 1,000,000,000 Baruch Hu Baruch Shemais.
Wow.
And in 1 minute, you could learn 200 words. So the guy who says, you know what? I don't need a luxury car. I could drive a regular car. I'm going to spend more time studying. Is that religious or is that smart?
It's interesting. There's no one thinks of currency as relates to religious, but
oh, I'm happy you brought this up.
Yeah.
So you have Chafetz Chaim. He was like one of the fathers in the world of Musar. You know, he was a very strong proponent of Musar. But the founder of the Musar movement, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. So the Chafetz Chaim said like this: I have 100 lessons that we could learn from the business world to apply to spirituality. You know, people don't like to think this way. They think the religious world is like, you know, this supernatural, mystical world where we do ooh, so I don't know what. No, we call the business world the real world. But what's the real world? And the Chafetz Chaim said there are 100 lessons we could take from the business world and apply it to maximizing our life for the spiritual world. But Rav Yisrael Salanter, the father of the Muslim movement, he had 400 lessons that you could take. Whether it's people who want to be successful in business, they make sure to get up early and they make sure to come on time to their meetings and they make sure they treat everything with the proper attention. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter would be able to extrapolate based on how people treat the business world and apply it to the spiritual. So yeah, I think it's important for us to recognize that the spiritual world, mitzvos have value, and we should think of it. We should think of, don't think you're above thinking of these things in a physical way. I mean, said, no, I want to do it for its own sake. I don't want to do it for reward. Don't fool yourself. I heard personally from Rabbi Avigdor Miller. He said, if only we would serve God to get reward. If only we were on that level.